What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 5 best musket builds in New World Aeternum that are optimized for both PvE and PvP. Also, as I will cover a lot of builds, so not to spend too much time, for each setup I will give you a quick overview of its playstyle. Then as well I will explain the best skill tree setup, then what gear should you wear, then even how many attributes should you allocate for each stat, and much more. So, moving over to the first build, which is the bow and the musket. This setup is focused around dealing ranged DPS for both PvE and PvP. The objective of the build primarily is to annoy and deal free damage to the enemies from long range. Our bow will offer ranged AoE damage and mobility, while the musket brings strong single target pressure from a distance. You will want to swap between these two weapons, depending on what the situation calls for. However, as long as the enemy never gets too close to you, you will be dealing insane amount of damage. So let's take a look at the build. For our gear choice, we will go with the light armor, as this will give us maximum amount of damage and 2 really good dodge rolls. Since this build always wants to be at max range, so we are mainly concerned with damage over survivability. Next we have the attributes, and we want to get 25 strength, 350 dexterity, around 150 to 200 intelligence, and 100 constitution. Some players prefer to go even more extreme and don't spend any points in constitution, but my point of view is that you can't deal damage if you're dead, so getting 50 or 100 constitution is definitely worth it. Next up we have our setup for the bow. This layout is more focused around damage over time. As I've mentioned, our objective is to deal as much damage as possible from the range. And then again, this is how it should look like for the musket. The principle is very similar, just the musket will focus more on increasing single target damage over time. If you are interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. And overall, if you are looking for one of the highest DPS builds in the game, then here it is. Next up we have the musket and void gauntlet. This setup's main focus is on melting down enemies with a lot of HP, as you will be doing crazy amount of damage, especially against bosses and heavy armor users. A lot of players really like this build because they can stay at range while doing incredible amount of burst damage, and if an enemy or a mob ever wants to reach you, then you will just melt them in few seconds. So let's take a look at the build. For our gear choice we will go with the light armor, as this will give us the maximum amount of damage, while also giving us 2 dodge rolls that we can use to catch or escape an enemy. As our main playstyle revolves around damage from range, so I definitely recommend to go with 1 medium armor and then the rest light equipment. Next we have the attributes, and we should get 350 dexterity, then 200 intelligence and 100 constitution. Since this build always wants to be at max range, so we are mainly concerned with damage over survivability. However, you can even go more extreme and sacrifice all of your constitution for even more DPS. I definitely don't recommend it, but it's an option as well. Then next up we have the skill tree, and this is how it should look like for the musket. These nodes and the overall layout is structured around increasing our damage over time, while also increasing our headshot and overall DPS by more than 2 times. And then again, this is how it should look like for the void gauntlet. This setup is made around removing and buffing the musket's weaknesses, which are locking down your target and armor penetration. So this is where the void gauntlet comes in very handy. If you are interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. Overall, if you are looking for amazingly fun and high DPS range build, then here you go. So moving over to the next build, which is the musket and the rapier. This setup's main focus is on melting down enemies with a lot of HP, as you will be doing crazy amount of damage, especially against bosses and heavy armor users. A lot of players really like this setup because they get amazing single target damage from the musket, while from the rapier they also have great defenses and high bleeds. So let's take a look at our build. For the gear choice we will go with the light category, as this will give us the perfect balance between damage and survivability. We as a musket user should almost never be too close to the enemy, no matter if in PvE or PvP, so as most of our job will be done on range, so going light is definitely a must-have. Next we have the attributes, and we should get 25 strength, then 350 dexterity, then from 150 to 200 intelligence, and then finally 100 constitution. Personally for me, these stats work the best, as we get to do insane amount of damage, but still be tough enough to withstand hard enough fights. Then next up we have the skill tree, and this is how it should look like for the musket. So we mainly build this setup around damage over time and quick to use skills, as we never want to stand still for too long, and range and kite is where we want to be at. And then again, this is how it should look like for the rapier. So we mainly went with quick bursts of damage and defensive skills, which we would want to use to defend ourselves if in case the enemy catches up to us. But as I said, we mainly want to stay at long range. If you're interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. And overall, if you're looking for super fun and high damage build, then here it is. Next up we have the musket and the blunderbuss. Surprisingly enough, these two weapons have quite powerful utility, as the setup has crazy burst damage, insane amount of life stealing, and is arguably the fastest boss and tank melter in the game. Our main playstyle will revolve around using musket for long range engagements, and then switching to blunderbuss for insane amount of close range damage. But as the blunderbuss range is quite low, so you will need to find the perfect balance between not being too close or too far away from the enemy. However, if you master the skill, then you will be destroying any target that stands in your way. So with that said, let's go over to the build. And for the weight, we again want to go with the light category, as our main focus is on as high damage as possible, so going light is a no-brainer. Next we have attributes, and we want to get 25 strength, then 150 dexterity, then 350 intelligence, and then finally from 100 to 150 constitution. On top of this, for both 4 weapons we want to use the ruby gems to boost our damage over time even further. Next we have the skill tree setup, and this is how it should look like for the musket. So this setup is more meant to being close to medium range, and as that means being a squishier target than most other melee setups, so we want to build this layout around trapping the enemies and completely destroying them if they decide to attack us. And then again, this is how it should look like for the blunderbuss. So with similar thought process like for the musket, we build this around trapping the enemies, escaping them and just overall melting them down if they get out of position, or if we were fighting against bosses, then just completely shredding them in few seconds. If you're interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. Overall, if you're looking for an off-meta build but which is very strong in PvP and fun in PvE, then here it is. Next up we have the musket and the spear. In my opinion, by combining a melee weapon with a firearm is a great idea, as it allows you to engage targets from a distance without leaving you vulnerable to the enemy's dedicated melee fighters. It also eliminates the mobility problem that many of the dedicated melee players have. So if you can't reach your enemy, just hit them with a musket round. This super fun build embraces the range plus melee idea and turns it up to even 11, as it offers a combination of deadly long range burst damage, nasty debuffs, high sustained melee damage and annoying crowd control abilities. So first up we have our weight, and we want to go with the light category, as this will give us 2 dodge rolls, and as a musket player we mainly want to stay at long range. Next, as far as attributes go, we want to get 25 strength, then 350 dexterity, then 150 intelligence, and then finally from 100 to 150 constitution. If you want, you can sacrifice even more constitution for more DPS, but as there will be diminishing returns and we don't get much of defensive abilities, so I don't recommend it. Next we have our musket skill tree setup, and this is how it should look like. So our main primary objective was to build a setup based around trapping the enemies and defending ourselves in close range. So then if an enemy decides to target us, then we can use the musket, trap him, then switch to the spear and completely destroy him. And then again, this is how it should look like for the spear. So very similar focus in mind, as most skills and perks are based around CCing the enemies and completely immobilizing them, so then us or our teammates can finish them off. Overall, if you're looking for an incredibly high CC build with great damage and good survivability, then this is it.